us. And for those Hello, everyone. I'll start that over. This is Heather Datillo with Boulder Insight, and we're so excited to welcome you to the August Tableau Live session. With me today as my co-host will be Christy Clark, and Sarah Henriksen will be joining as well in the call today. We have received several questions in advance, so we know some of you join us live and some of you watch us during the recordings on our YouTube channel. But we are so thrilled to have you here. If you haven't submitted a question already and you'd like to submit one, you're welcome to do that for those of you that are with us live right now. You can put that in the chat, and you can do that at any point. A question may come to you as we're talking, and that's totally fine as well. You're welcome to come off mute. You're welcome to turn on your camera if you want or not. Either way is totally fine, and to use the chat for our live participants. But we are really excited that we had several questions that came in advance. So we have the goal today to walk through those submitted questions. We always answer open Q&A questions as well during the call. And then we'll wrap up with some ways that we can continue to support you in your Tableau journey. So let's get started. I'll go with the first question. So we got this question from Alberto, and he's a regular. Alberto comes often to our sessions, and I know he had a question around data organizing. And so Christy, I think, was going to handle this piece a little bit, talking about ways to organize and prepare your data using Tableau Prep as one of the options, and organizing content within Tableau Server or Cloud, how projects, workbooks, permissions, and things work. So Christy, I am going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Awesome. Hello, folks. So while I'm switching on over to my screen, and we're going to look at a few resources online, a few resources inside of Tableau, I did want to check in and see if you'll let me know in chat how many of you have issues with this, just how you get the data cleanly laid out, whether it's inside of Tableau Desktop or up on server. Give me a yes, give me a emoji of some kind if this is an issue for you. If not, we can make this a slightly less intensive topic. All right, my silent friends, let's go ahead and share that screen, and we will start off taking a look directly inside of Tableau. So I'll move into the server side of this here in just a second. But just taking a look over here on the left-hand side, the data pane as we come in, and by the way, I'm just looking at one of the basic Tableau workbooks that I pulled off of the front page here, these world indicators, since they've got some good layout stuff done already. So first things first, when you connect to that data and you have that pulled up in Tableau, the fields all come in on the left-hand side, and by default, those get organized in here according to data source table. In other words, if you connected to one big spreadsheet, you got one big list. If you connected to multiple different spreadsheets or tables and joined those or related those, you're going to end up with those grouped together. So the reason I start here is when we're talking about using things like Tableau Prep, other tools, connecting to the data directly, one thing I have found kind of useful in Tableau Prep is it lets you build out the data so that each different table has a single level of detail. In other words, everything in that table all goes together. So let's say here we're looking at information at the country level. Well, maybe I also have it at the city level, or we've got some related data that might not be about population. Maybe we've got that income data also that has some different dynamics with it. Building out each separate table in Tableau Prep so that it all rolls up together nice and neat, and one row means one thing in each table, and then allowing you to connect it where it's grouping by data source table automatically gives you a nice clean layout over here. It's fairly similar to what you see if you group by folder. So by making the switch to group by folder, you'll notice that you're able to organize the information according to what's important. So in this particular case, you can right click on any of these fields, and as you come on down to this folder area, you can add your fields to different folders, remove from folders, but that can make it nice and easy to organize that information. Again, if I've got to do some cleanup work on that data already, I might, in Tableau Prep, go ahead and build those out so each source table represents everything I need in that one little section, and it will help to automatically organize it like this. Second big thing that I really do like to do when I'm inside Tableau Desktop is I do like to get rid of any unused fields. So as you're building out your dashboard, you'll find that you're not always going to use everything that's in that data. So coming up here once again, and once you've built your view out, choosing hide all unused fields, well, that helps to shrink the list down so you're not seeing absolutely everything at the same time. You're only seeing the things that you use. So those are two things that I like to do to organize the data directly here inside of Tableau and make it a little easier to work through. Now I just want to pause and see if there's any questions on that side before we switch over to server. Okay. Again, I'm going to keep it fairly high level as we switch on over to server. I've worked at a number of different companies that have different levels of control around how they want folks to see and access that data. So I'm going to start off here on the publishing side as I come up to the top and get ready to take and publish my workbook up to server to start sharing it with other people. When I choose this publish option, we have something here that's slightly newer in Tableau. Now we have all these different locations we can send the data to, and you'll notice that one of those is personal space. Now, I love using the personal space option. Everyone has this on server now, but it lets you put things out there that are just for you. So you can pull them up in meetings, you can show other people without cluttering up all of the other stuff on Tableau. Otherwise, we always have this default folder. That's what's created when you set up Tableau server, and then we can add in other top level folders. Now, in this particular case, I am not going to publish this one on up since I don't want those world indicators here. Instead, I'm going to pause my screen for just a second and switch on over to Tableau server manually. Hold, please. Now, as I'm pulling this up, one of the big things I want to point out is the top level folders. So when we're using Tableau, and let's see, I'm going to use let's use our big governance site. All right, so when we log into Tableau server, we have the ability in our little explore area to go in and we can create top level projects. The reason I point this out is you also have the ability to create multiple different sites. Now, one of the largest companies that I've worked with, they just had one big site. And the reason is these top level projects, you can create different owners for each one of these, and that owner can administer and run that individual project. So if we have different departments or different groups that are publishing very different content with very different audiences, using these top level projects allows you essentially to have separate individual sites, but from an admin level, we can roll all that reporting up to this one site. And so again, from an admin or server admin level, it can get a little bit easier to maintain that one site. So we can still really restrict that content. With sites, we can't share data sources between them. With different top level folders, maybe we've got a sales team in one folder and we've got our marketing team in another. They both need the same types of data or the same data, just viewed in different ways. So by organizing our departments according to top level projects, that allows us to have data that can cross through different groups, but have that end dashboard visible and available just to the teams that need it. So what we see fairly often if we're going to do reusable data sources, so publishing those data sources separately, is to have those projects, those set up, have those individual data sources in data source projects so that we can assign the permissions to our developers and then our end users only need access to or to see these dashboard folders for their departments. And that makes the whole permissions thing a whole lot easier to handle. So those are the two big things that I wanted to call attention to on data organization. Any questions on either of those or anything more specific that you'd want to take a look at on how you can organize the data to find it and share it a little more easily?
Feel free to come off mute if you do have any questions or put that in the chat. We'll be keeping a close eye on it.
Okay.
And for those of you just joining as well, remember at any point you can submit a question into the chat. We will have an open Q&A today, and we'll make sure to get to those questions as well.
Okay.
I don't think so, Christy. I think that's all. All right, let me share my screen again for our next question. Um, and I believe this was next. Oops, hang on. Yep. So one of the other questions, and Christy, I think this was going to be yours
So
to
I have a
handle as
question.
well.
Um,
Oh yeah, go ahead, Janine. Do you have a question? Oh, I thought I heard someone with a question.
I do have a question on that.
Yes, go ahead, Janine.
Can can you hear me?
We sure can. Yep. Yep, we can hear you, Janine. Or we could. All right. You keep coming on back to us and we'll get back to that. I think your question may have
And so
been,
my yes, my apologies. My question was about what you were just showing. You mentioned specifically Tableau server,
Yes.
but is that also specific to Tableau cloud?
Ah, great question. Yes.
So
Same.
that was related to Tableau cloud as well, where you can set up the projects. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Apologies. Yeah. I use Tableau Server kind of interchangeably for on-prem versus cloud. But yes, same project setup on both.
great question, because that's not always the case. There are some things on cloud that aren't available on server and vice versa. So great question, Deneen. So thank you for chiming in. And we encourage any of you to do that. We want you to know that this is something that we started back in 2020 during the pandemic. We used to run the Boulder Tableau user group here. And when we were no longer gathering together in person, we decided to keep answering questions for folks online. And so that's where this started. It used to be called Stump the Chump, and the chump was Chris, our founder, that people used to try to stump him with questions during our Boulder Tableau user groups. And so we've just opened this up to the whole community. So we want you to feel comfortable to unmute, put things in the chat. It's a very open forum and one where everybody's welcome. So please, please keep asking, because if you have the question, somebody else does as well. So let me get back to the presentation as well. Another question we got from Michael V was around leveraging accelerators. So I know last month we had talked a little bit about accelerators, and during our national webinar that we did called From Zero to Hero, we mentioned that as well. So some things to think about for leveraging accelerators, Christy's going to cover, like replacing data sources, replacing references, tips to make this easier, and data mapping features. And I believe Jordan, Michael's exact question was really about, the data being similar but not exactly the same with an accelerator. So correct me if I'm wrong on that. Okay, all right. Christy, I'll hand over this to you as well to talk about accelerators.
Okay. So let's go ahead and share one more time and dive on in. So to get to the accelerators, these are something that just if you type Tableau accelerators into any chat, it's on the Tableau Exchange if you hadn't been out there before. You can also find a link to the accelerators directly inside of Tableau. If you go back to that open screen, you'll find they're here in this section across the bottom. Now, just a quick recap, an accelerator is just a pre-built dashboard that you can use to swap your data out so you can get started with something someone else has already done. Now, spoiler alert, something doesn't have to be an accelerator in order for you to do this. In fact, before accelerators came along, we would all just go out to Tableau Public, download amazing workbooks, and swap the data out ourselves. So while accelerators kind of formalize the process, it's not something new, and I want to show you the steps whether it's an accelerator or not. So if we start off on that accelerator page, the one big advantage that something that's on the accelerator page has is that they do have this data mapping enabled feature. So if I check this box, that's only going to show me the accelerators that have data mapping enabled. And they make the use of an accelerator even easier because as I go into any one of these, and you'll notice they're on a number of different topics, when I click and open it on up, it gives me a lot of details on what that accelerator is, what business questions it's answering, and all the way on down. Now, if I want to use this accelerator, or really any workbook that I find in the wild or that someone else in my company built, I can just download it. And of course, you'll have to sign in and go through the download, but then it's on your hard drive. Now, if that data mapping has been enabled, then you'll be able to simply go up into a little data mapping module that says, hey, we have a category field. Now that you've connected to your data, what do you want to use as the category field? And so that data mapping literally allows you to map the field in your data to the field in the accelerator. Now, not all accelerators have that. Not always do we have a one-to-one mapping. And along with that, a lot of times we just want to switch something out maybe that we've already built. We do this a lot in the training world where we take data that we're using to train with one group and just swap out those dashboards with a data set that works well for another. And so that's what I want to show you right here. If you don't have that accelerator to do the mapping and you don't have an exact match between one data set and another, how do you get it to work? So starting off, you'll notice that whatever data set it is that you're using has a blue check mark when you're on a worksheet that's using it, blue or orange, but the blue says, hey, this is my main data source here. Now I've connected to a second similar data source. Actually, that one's not similar at all. So this is going to be a super fun example of things that don't work great. But these are very different.
I'm on bended knee here. I'm so excited on the edge of my chair. We'll see how this is going to turn out.
Right. So what I want you to notice when I've connected to those two different data sources, and by the way, if you need to connect to two different data sources to swap, you just click on this little cylinder with that plus sign and you can grab another data source. So that brings a second data source in. Now, when I do that and I switch over and look at that second data source, you'll see these little link icons, and that says, hey, I have the same field name in my other data set as in this one. So if I have a really good match, I'll see those light gray links all the way down saying, yep, we've got really good alignment here. Now, in this case, we're going to see really terrible alignment, so everything's going to explode and stop working, but I bet you we can get it back at least part of the way. So towards that end, I am going to come on down to my world indicator, the data set that the entire dashboard is built on, and simply right click on it. I can figure out how to right click. Whoa, there we go. And with that right click, as we go down, we've got this option to replace the data source. So, and I'm going to build this out as one really quick data set just to keep it nice and simple. I am going to put my country region field out here on rows, and I'm going to put my GDP per capita out here as my bar chart and go ahead and do a quick sort. Now, when I take and right click on my data source, I choose to replace that data source, and I have a choice here. I can replace it absolutely everywhere or only on the current worksheet. I'm going to keep it just to the current worksheet because we see I don't have the right mapping for all of my fields. And by the way, you won't see this current worksheet only on older versions of Tableau. This is a slightly more recent feature. But my current worksheet of world indicators is going to be replaced by my sample superstore. And so when I click OK, Tableau goes through and says, hey, no problem. Any fields that have an exact name match get swapped out. But then you'll notice that everything just turned gray, even though I've got that little blue check mark now on my orders data set. So we're on the right data set, we're just not getting what we need because this bright red field says, hey, I didn't match. So I don't have GDP per capita in my sample superstore. I actually wanted to use profit. So I come back on over here to the left, and if I can go through my orders superstore data and look, there's that profit field. Notice all these red fields, well, that's saying, hey, I don't have a match. I'm something that was in use on our world indicator sheet, but I don't match what's on my existing sheet. And GDP per capita is one of those. It's right here. So if I find all those red exclamation points and then I right click, just like I could replace the data source, I can come through and replace references to any of these fields. So when I choose replace references, now I can find the field that I mean for it to be, the one that's in my data, and just click OK. And that updates everything. So now I have the countries from my Superstore data set instead of the world indicators, and we're looking at profit instead of GDP. So those little red indicators are super helpful to go through and figure out what needs to be changed, and that allows you to switch the data over a little bit more smoothly. I like to start with the things that don't have equal signs because as you fixed the fields that come with it, your calculations often follow automatically. So that's all I wanted to say about the replace data source and using those accelerators. Such a great way to get started. Please note, last little tip here, when you download those workbooks, if you come up to the top and go to worksheet, describe sheet. Whenever you download someone else's work, this is one of my favorite things. This shows you everything on the worksheet. If there's any calculations in use, it'll show you all of the calculations that nest together to get there. But this can be used to recreate the workbooks that you've downloaded in even greater detail and really learn how the system works. So that
All right,
again,
that is new for me, Christy. I did not know
oh,
that was in there. I have never gone, I have just ignored that
oh,
drop apparently.
it's the
So, well, there you go.
control everything button. It's one of my favorites.
Good to know. Any questions from anybody with that with Christy? Please don't hesitate to come off mute or put them in the chat. All right, the question for you, and you can just put it in the chat. How many of you have ever leveraged an accelerator? If you have, give me a Y in the chat, or a yes if you want to type more letters, or give me an N if you haven't. So let's hear from you all and see if you've ever used an accelerator. Not yet. Okay. Yep. Seeing a lot of no's and some not yets. That's great. All right. Well, the next place that we're going to, this is so interesting when I'm clicking on it, it's jumping my screen. Um, so the next question, and I do believe we have a couple of the folks that asked this question on the call, which is very exciting. Is all around design tips. So let me go ahead and make this a little bigger. So ways to improve dashboard engagement. We had this question come up from three different people on the call, Alexi, Lance, and Matthew. So some things we want you to keep in mind. We do have a link to a blog post we wrote a long time ago, back in 2020. Some things to keep in mind is engaging your audience, keeping it simple. I think one of the biggest mistakes we see, particularly with new users in Tableau, is that you try to put every worksheet you've created into one dashboard. So it can cause something called cognitive overload. We don't want that for your people. Thinking about how you organize it, how to use actions and not filters, leveraging those dashboard actions, and thinking about data story colors. So I'll put a link into this blog post as well. But I believe this question I'm going to hand over to Jordan and Sarah to talk about. And Jordan, I know you've been having some technical issues, so let us know how it's working for you.
I think that it will let me share my piece, hopefully. We will
Fingers crossed.
also fast. So 1 second, let me just get this in presenter mode. No, we don't need that.
In the meantime, I'll be sure to share the link to the blog post that I was showing on that for everybody as well.
So I've got a lot of links to share. Okie doke. So my piece, I was going to just share a little bit about utilizing backgrounds and graphic images when you can. We have something at Boulder Insight that'll be a free resource for everybody and will be included in the follow-up email, but Tableau templates. So we use an app for Mac called Sketch to design these background templates and then save them as images and just drop them into the background of our dashboards to kind of create a better, just a better kind of look for better UX and better UI. And hopefully this will load. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Whoops. But yes, as you can see, we have various different backgrounds for you to choose from. When you go in and download these, it comes with 80 different images, so all different types of layout containers. And to create these, we use this app called Sketch, but I know that Microsoft users are able to use Figma and generate pretty much the same results. This is just what I've been using. But this is how we go in and create those background containers. And we are happy if anybody has wants to see a more in-depth sort of tutorial about that, to schedule time with us. And we could talk about that in a deeper meeting outside of this. But Sketch, super awesome for creating background images. And then for images like you see here in this pulse poll dashboard, which we're going to share in more depth towards the end of the call, to get these people, if you've got a dashboard that might be more of a lighter topic, or you have the space to include some graphic images, I like to use Vecteezy. And these are all available for free download and no need to use any credits or anything like this. So this has been a very helpful tool for us since we don't have a professional graphic designer on the team. This is a way for you to become a professional graphic designer for your dashboards. And then the other thing I wanted to share is another article that we've posted. And this is 5 considerations when you're building a dashboard background. So this understanding the needs of the user and client, why you would want to use light or dark backgrounds, containers for data that organize information and provide contrast, organizing the data so the information is displayed in a simple manner, and then being creative but not distracting. And we'll include, and Heather, you might have just sent that in there, but all of these very helpful articles will be included in our follow-up. Okie doke. And then I will pass over to Sarah to talk more about design aspects from a developer's point of view.
Excuse me. Yeah, so there's all sorts of considerations that we have to take when we're developing a dashboard. And one of the things I pulled up that coffee shop. Oh, let me share my screen. Excuse me. So that blog post that Heather was talking about, 5 ways to improve dashboard engagement. This dashboard here was taken from kind of a less pretty version. Heather, do you have that downloaded? I don't have that other one downloaded.
I do not have it downloaded.
Okay,
Let me,
that's okay.
yeah,
No,
but
I think
there
it'll
is a
be fine.
before and after. I can give you the link to it on Chris's Tableau Public, though. So I
Yeah,
can do that.
there
Let
it
me give
is.
you that
Yeah,
link.
thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
And so a lot of what we think about when we're thinking about how we lay out a dashboard, you have the design side that Jordan was talking about, where we're developing a background image. That background image is really helpful in order to just pull elements on to your dashboard and have it, have different zones and areas for different things, right? So not only is the developer of the dashboard thinking about a layout, but they're also working with a graphic designer or some sort of designer to then do that background layout as well. The
Sarah, I
yes,
just put that link in case you wanted to look at befores and
perfect.
afters of the
Thank
dashboard.
you.
You're
Perfect.
welcome.
Thank you.
And that's for anybody
And
else
it's
that's open
and
to
I
the
was going to
public.
say it's in the chat, so it's perfect. Thank you for putting it in the chat. So if you look at something, this dashboard has all of the same elements, right? We're looking at all of the same metrics, and as the designer, as the developer, the two parties come together in order to take that raw data, right? Total sales made, profit percentage, and turn that into something that's a lot more digestible. So I'd like to do a little interactivity here for those who can either come off mute or use the chat. What do you think from this dashboard right here? What do you think works well and what did not work well? What would you change and what works well? I'm going to open up my chat just in case anybody's going to use the chat to uh, engage. You can also, like Heather was saying, come off mute.
What's the
Does
good,
any,
bad, and ugly with this dashboard right now?
I was going to say, does anybody like these colors? Yeah, too busy. Yep, love it. Yeah, lots and lots of colors going on here.
I don't know where to look
Also,
first, Joanne is saying too. Yeah.
yes, yep, Joanne, very, very accurate. I love it. Um, the color squirrels. Squirrels. No, I
Those-
think they're squirrels. Yep, those color
They
squirrels.
might as well be
Um,
squirrels.
yeah, they might as well be. That's the insight that we're getting from this. They could be squirrels, and we'd get the exact same insight. Um, so these little pie charts on the map, it's really hard for us to see the differences and view all these, right? So taking this, toning down the amount of colors, making sure that we have what's most important at the top, what's most important as those numbers, and changing this up a little bit. So the other cool thing is a lot of the times you can use parameters. If we were talking about it's too busy, we can use parameters to swap out different metrics. So if it's like, oh, we need to be able to see profit, we need to be able to see sales, we need to be able to see profit ratio. Instead of showing those all at the same time, we can leverage a parameter to switch between those metrics. And then we have our KPIs or our top level down here in the middle. We also have some interactivity so that we're clicking on these copies and it's filtering other areas. There's also kind of, this left side panel makes it very engaging because it just is like, oh, here's T. What does this look like? Is it weak? Is it strong? Right? There's these other aspects. This apparently we're having Irish whiskey in our coffee. It's early
At least
in the
it's
morning.
decaf,
Yeah,
so it's
right.
not both.
Offset.
Yeah.
Offset. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we can all agree that this dashboard is significantly less busy. It's a lot easier to find the metrics. Now, I want you to take a look at this dashboard and tell me what maybe you would change or maybe what's hard to understand with this dashboard. I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to think about that.
Well, I will tell you, this
Okay.
dashboard was done a long time ago. And some of the things I
Yes.
don't love is that I would prefer the KPIs to be at the top of the page rather than the middle.
Me too.
Yeah, I don't love them there. I also don't love the font color is more of a gray. I think it should be white. It's difficult to read for
Yeah.
all of the things except the measures themselves, the dollars.
Yeah.
I don't think that we've put any dollar signs on the bar chart down below.
Yep.
So
There's
that would be
some
helpful.
inconsistency of formatting,
Yeah.
right? And
And
this is one of
yeah,
those things. Thank you, Heather. I think what you kind of talked about with um, this was developed a very long time ago, and it's a good example of taking a very busy dashboard and making it prettier and easier to understand. But one of my big mentalities with dashboarding is my dashboards are never done, right? There's always an opportunity to go back and rework some things to make them easier to understand or make them a little bit prettier. There's I I also I have such a hard time with size. Size is one of those things in general that you have to just use sparingly, and it's very difficult to get right. So I generally tend to not use size all that often. Like we see with the bars here, where the top bar is not only the longest but also the thickest. You might think that there's something else going on because it's already the longest. We can tell that we don't need it to be also the thickest. So um, there's, even with dashboards that are the more polished version, there's always opportunity to go back and look with a clear new set of eyes as to what might be able to be adjusted so that it's either, a little bit more modernized, or maybe we just missed some things during the original process. Does anybody have any questions on any of this? Okay,
All
awesome.
right.
Yeah,
I am going to add just a couple little things to this.
please.
I'm going to send a link to you all. We did a webinar called From Zero to Hero that's all about designing dashboards with based on human-centered design principles and things. So it's a great 1 hour webinar. It was one of our largest webinars we've ever done with Caresoft. I think it broke a record with them, and it's free to you all. So I just put that resource in there for you. And when we're talking about the layouts of the dashboards, this information is included in that. That there's a science to how you're laying it out, and that's based on UX standards for designing websites and apps. And so you want to think about your dashboards in that same way too. And Sarah talked about that top area. You want to think about that F pattern when you're laying it out, that we look at the top and then the sides when we're looking at apps and websites, and then also thinking about how we read in our culture in a Z pattern. So when you think about that in a dashboard, these certain areas of the dashboard are often the common ways that you would want to be laying things out. You may not have right and left rails, but there will be data heroes. There's a place where your logo should always go, your title, any parameters or filters you're using or navigation should all go to the top right, KPIs at the top. So your end users are being trained to look at each of your dashboards in a similar way. So just wanted to point those out. There's a whole thing around, oh yes, UX is user experience. Thanks, Sarah. All the alphabet soup things that we say. KPI means key performance indicator as well. So just wanted to give you that link. That's a great resource and a fun place to go. So this next question, let me present. Here is one that came from Chloe. I don't know that Chloe's here live right now. I don't believe so. Yeah, I'm just looking. Nope, I don't see her right now. But this was a question about dashboard building and building a dashboard. So what I'm going to do is start from scratch. We have something called the Boulder Insight Academy. So I'm pulling a lesson from that. And we'll be happy to share this Twibix file with you all too, following this as well. You can have access to that whole workbook because it has step-by-step processes for how to do it. There is another blog post, Jordan, if you wouldn't mind sharing that one. And this visual analysis process is something that Sarah actually taught me to be a trainer for the visual analysis course for Tableau. And we took inspiration from that visual analytics course to kind of talk about the way that we like to design dashboards. So one of the key things that you want to think about is your audience. And we always say, start with the question. From there, you then go to your data and you want to go back to your audience and find out, do they have some super secret spreadsheet that's only on their computer or a Google sheet that they haven't shared with anybody? Make sure you have all the data that you think you need in order to answer that question that they have. Think about the story. That's where some of the things that Jordan talked about earlier with our Tableau templates and things, that if you're not a designer and you're not sure how to lay it out, we do have 80 different background images, and templates have the background image for 20 of them in addition to layout containers. So everything is laid out exactly how you need it to drag and drop. Then you start building your dashboard and you go back to the audience and make sure what you're building is what the audience is used to seeing and wants to see and makes sense. So, for instance, if your boss hates pie charts, don't build pie charts. And dear God, don't put a pie chart on a map like we saw earlier. Never do that. But think about a donut chart or another dessert chart in that mind, or thinking about distributions of data. Most people understand a normal bell curve, but they might not understand a box and whisker plot. So thinking about which type of chart is the right chart to use and what your audience is going to understand. As you build it, you should be seeing insights that you go back to your audience and say, my gosh, did you recognize that this was happening? Or is this validating and what you expected? But the key here when you're building a dashboard is it should end with some kind of action. It shouldn't just be a report. This is called the visual analysis process, not the reporting process, that we don't want to go back and just report on what happened in the past without leaning towards answering that question and taking an action based on that. And then if you do this right, it's typically another cycle around with a new question that you have as well. So let me close this out. There we go. And I'm going to open up my Tableau workbook that I have wrote a curricula for the Boulder Insight Academy that I mentioned. And here you'll see that visual analysis. That probably would have been better to show. That's so much larger. I could have started there. I forgot it was in there for y'all. And what we're going to do is start to ask some questions. So like one of the first questions I might have, this is that sample Superstore data, a little different. It's the Superstore data that Christy was showing. This is one that we often use in training that is just a little bit different, has a little bit of information in it. But one of the first questions I'd want to know was what are our most and least profitable products. So let me show you how to build it. And I'm going to work from these starters. And so that whoops, there we go. I didn't have my drawing tool on yet. So you'll notice that in these captions, when we send you this workbook, this does give you the step-by-step to do it, but I'm going to build it for you as well. So one of the things that you first want to do, oftentimes starting with a measure is a great practice because it will allow you to actually narrow the data to whatever data has that measure. So I'm bringing a measure from Tableau, dragging it onto columns, and actually I'm going to drag it onto rows because I want to do vertical instead of horizontal bars. And then from dimensions, I'm going to slice this measure. It's now aggregated. It says sum of sales. So I'm going to actually slice this data as well. And I want to look at subcategory. And I'm going to drag that to columns. So that now slices the data. I'm also going to sort this because I can't stand bar charts that aren't sorted. It's kind of my own little thing, but I think it helps your end user as well. So it's very rare I do an alphabetical bar chart. They're typically going to be sorted by descending order or ascending. We tend to care most about what's at the top or the bottom of our data. And then if we want to look at profitability, so here we're seeing sales. If we want to look at profitability, I can bring in another measure, but I'm going to pull that onto color on the marks card here as well. So when I do that, now I can start to see in Tableau, blue and orange diverging is the default color palette. Blue is good, orange is bad, not profitable. So we can start to see right away, tables are a problem. We're losing $17,000 on our tables, even though we sold over 206,000 of them. So that's what this would look like. And I can even change the title to be a question since I'm starting with a question. The next question that I might have is, how are we trending with sales? So again, what I can do is from measures, I can drag sales to rows. And again, you'll see this on this side over here. From dimensions, I'm going to drag order date to columns. And then from there, I want to look at this over time a bit more. So I want to make this a chart where I can look at this by month and start to see how this is going from it. So I click on the drop down. I go down here to the month May 2015 because I want to see a trend line over time. If I would have gone to month of May here, this would be all of my Mays in my data set, and that would be a discrete data set there when we're looking at that. That's a date part versus a date value. Whole nother lesson we can do on another time. So now we've got that line chart solution done. The next thing I'd want to know, so we know which products are profitable and which ones aren't. We also now want to go and understand, where are our customers, right? So we know our products. Let's know a little bit more about our customers as well. And so to build a map, it looks like my map starter here, I'm going to be let's say that I want to look at from dimensions, I'm going to take state and I could drag that anywhere. I could drag it onto detail. Well, not anywhere, but a couple places I could drag it into show me, and this will automatically create a map for you. From here, what I can do is I can either go to my drop down and I can go to the map option here that I've got. That will fill that in, or I can go up to show me and I can click in a filled map. Either way will work. And what I want to do right now, I'm looking at this, but I don't really have sales or profit on it. We're looking at profitability right now. We'll bring profit onto color. So now we can start to see that Texas is a problem, Colorado is a problem, Arizona, Pennsylvania. If I start looking at Colorado, Texas, and Pennsylvania, those are all places where my family has lived or I have lived. So maybe I'm the problem with some of this profitability, right? I don't know. And then the next thing that I'd want to do is look at a scatter plot. Just looking at the time we have right now. I'm not going to build out these last charts. They're already built for you, but I'll show you how to build the dashboard. So in order to build the dashboard, you first have to be connected to data. From there, once you connect to data, you build out your worksheets and then you go to a dashboard. So I've also done a scatter plot that's saying who are my most and least profitable customers. So anyone above this mark is profitable and below that I'm going to be concerned about. So at the holidays, we may not send these customers the gift baskets that we might want to send out because we're a little concerned about what's happening here. So we can look at what's happening with our customers. Cindy Stewart, we're definitely losing quite a bit of money on. So we might want to start with why is that happening? What's going on? And then finally, you can start looking at the dates. So one of the ways that we often like to look at dates, not only in trend lines or bar charts, is to look at them in heat maps. And so I've created when I wrote this part of the curriculum, a heat map for the year and the day of the week, the quarter and the day of the week, and the month and the day of the week. And again, we have profit on color for these. So let's pull it all into a dashboard. So if we look, this is all of the worksheets that we covered. We also have an order date slider that's here as well. And we've created this dashboard. So in order to do the dashboard starter, you've got your worksheets created. In order to create let me zoom in here. This is your worksheet tab. To create a dashboard, you go simply to the little one that looks like a window. That creates a dashboard for you. So I already have that in here for a starter. And when we send this out to you, there are directions about how to go about doing this. And so you can use the solutions then to build the dashboard if you didn't get all of those starter things built. But a dashboard's not too hard to build once you've built your charts and you've thought about the questions that you want to answer. And so one thing that you can do is just keep it tiled. We do talk about floating and things, but when you're first starting, tiled is sometimes the easiest way to do it. And so if I look at my dashboard, let's go ahead and start by building these four, and then I'll show you a trick about a layout container. So to do that, I can bring in this by either dragging and dropping or double clicking my bar chart. From there, it looks like I want my map next, so I can bring in my map. And I can just simply drag it carefully. You'll start to see the gray boxes. Just drop that in. And then I also want my scatter plot and my line chart. So I can grab my scatter plot, drag that below the chart that I just had with the bar chart. And I want to bring in my line chart. I'll bring that down here for the solution. So now I have a dashboard that has each of these. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. We're going to do a couple little tricks here. And I'm going to keep this here for right now. We're going to do something called a layout container. So next, what I want to do, I want to bring in all of the things that I want to be able to allow people to filter the dashboard with. So what I'm going to do is bring in what's called a vertical layout container. So from here, I can bring in this vertical layout container. I'm dragging it carefully. You'll see it's popping in at different places. I want it to go across both the top and the bottom, and then make this much tinier to bring that in. Now I can bring in my order date slider for folks to use. And then I can bring in each of my year, quarter, and months. And you'll notice, and I'm going to continue to get rid of the legend. We'll talk about that in a second. When I bring in the quarter, you'll notice if I'm bringing it into the layout container, you have this whole area that has these diagonal lines coming in. That's how you know you're getting it into the layout container. And then I'll bring in my month. From there, the last thing that we really need to do is add a title. So you can just simply click on Show Dashboard Title to get a title in. We can edit that title, and I'll show you what we did over here. I'm going to move over to the solution. And you'll notice one of the tricks that I learned from Sarah, actually, when I was going through the visual analytics course, one of the cool things you can do with legends, because what we often say is dashboard, real estate in a dashboard is expensive. And so you want to use that space as easily as you can to not take up too much. You want it to be valuably used. So we can put in our title, how are our profit and sales, and then you can simply put in profit, highlight that, color it blue, and do the same with loss, and also color that orange so we know orange is bad, blue is good in this case. And then the final piece is to create dashboard actions. So you can go to Dashboard, Actions, and I already have an action, dashboard action created. For this one, we kept it simple where we said we want anytime you click on any of the worksheets on select, that they would then pivot and change all of the other worksheets and show all values. Okay, so I'll move in just a bit so you can see that. So now I can ask questions from this, like, okay, we know one of the questions we had were tables weren't profitable. Well, what's happening with tables? So I can click on tables and we can see all of the years, quarters, and months have not been great. In particular, this October date wasn't great. Let's find out. That was in Tennessee, and it was these customers, Dean, Victoria, Sean, Adam, and I can start to see each of the people. So you can click anywhere in the dashboard, start to get answers from it. So let me pause. That was a whole bunch all at once. We'll send you the workbook with the step-by-step with it. But any questions on how to build a dashboard? Now, again, we didn't do background images or any of those pieces, but we did follow some design best practices. So questions from y'all? All right, let me stop sharing my screen. And oops, I am trying to get back to the right screen with our PowerPoint. Hang on one second, please. I think I may have closed it out, Jordan, so I'm just bringing it back up. And we'll get to the last of the questions we have. So let me share my screen here again. No, we're doing great. We've got 5 minutes left, and I think we got to each of the questions. Let me see. I think we're going to have to hold on to designing desktop and mobile for next month. We don't have Lizette here, so I think that should be okay. And using Salesforce data. So actually, I will give Sarah her choice. Sarah, would you like to talk more about how to make over the dashboard I made? Did we cover enough there? Would you like to talk about desktop or mobile views or Salesforce data today?
Let's why don't we, Annette is not on. Okay, why don't we talk quickly about Salesforce data? Because I
Yeah,
think
I
it's a
think
pretty
that's a great
pretty
idea.
quick um quick discussion. Um I think the mobile one maybe requires a little bit more
It does. It's a
yeah,
whole nother
it's a whole
thing.
thing. Um
So,
so Salesforce data, I have worked quite a bit with Salesforce data coming in to Tableau. Now, there are a lot of newer um, aspects of Salesforce, Data Cloud, and things like that, um, that have the changed the platform, right? Have changed things a little bit about how you connect to Salesforce data. For just like a basic connection. The big thing to remember is Salesforce data works very similarly to other relational databases. When you connect to Salesforce, it has all of your different tables in Salesforce. They're called objects, but they're essentially tables. And um, there are, IDs, unique identifiers between those objects or tables where you can bring two different objects or two different tables together. I will say a couple of notes about some difficulties. One is when you connect to Salesforce data, you always have to extract, right? You cannot connect live. You have to extract and then run a oh my gosh, my brain stopped working right for a second. You have to run an extract on the server. Thank you. My brain is just stopped. But you have to make sure that you're extra, or it's kind of forcing you to extract. The other thing is a lot of the times, free-form text fields within Salesforce are in a completely different object. Also, there are objects. If you have different types of drop downs across different objects or across different page layouts, those all might be in one table in Salesforce with different key identifiers. So if you have multiple drop downs um, on the same page, those might be stored in different objects, and they might be stored in the same object just with different keywords connected to the same ID. So there's a lot of things to think about in that regard.
And so,
Also,
Sarah,
like
I
I,
think what we'll
oh yeah,
do is next session, we'll start with the Salesforce question and have some
okay,
live demos of it. I think that will
sure,
be great. And then we'll also go back to that mobile versus desktop thing, 'cause
yeah,
that could take
yeah,
up a whole session
yes.
itself.
I was gonna
So I
say
think that makes great sense.
I was being mindful of the time, but we're ticking away here, so I don't want
Yeah.
to talk too much.
Yeah. So thank you so much. I know I kind of
Uh,
threw you like, you have 2 minutes, talk.
That's all right. That's all right. I mean, those are just
So
kind of the two big things to think of, and we can dive deeper into them next time.
So that sounds like a perfect idea. Some things that we want to make sure that you all know, and Jordan, if you wouldn't mind putting in the link to this, some of the design tips that Jordan was talking about, we used, and Sarah was talking about, it was Sarah, Jordan, and I that worked on this project. This is our 6th year of working with the Colorado Health Foundation, and this is a public-facing dashboard. So we're going to give you the link to this on the Tableau public side of things, and there's a little icon at the top that you can nominate it for Visit the Day. We'd love for you to help us get that nominated as well, but also check it out as a really interesting dashboard, not only for the information that it provides, but from the design point, because we had a lot of design questions today. And then we also want to offer you a 30-minute strategy session with Chris Cox, our boss, for free if you have any questions for that. And I will also put in my link as well to my Calendly. I'd be happy to meet with you too. And I will grab that right now and put in my Calendly link into the chat. And I often do dashboard makeover sessions with you since we talked about design. That's a free session that I could do with you to take a look at the dashboards you've built. And then finally, you let us know how we've done. Make sure you sign up for the September um, uh, Tableau Live and be sure to give us feedback. We'd love to know where we're doing well, where we could do better, what kinds of topics you'd like covered. If you don't want to come in and talk yourself, but give us ideas of what you'd like to see next, we'd love to hear from that as well. So we wish you all the best as you end the summer and lean into back to school and back to not having your holidays for the summer and vacation. We hope your fall is lovely and pleasant, and we look forward to seeing you in September at our next session. So take care, everyone. Have a lovely day. See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.